Faces dropped on a new edition of Soccer Down Here. It is muted. It is a Monday edition of the show, Overreaction Monday, so you can share your overreactions, underreactions, on-par reactions with us on Twitter at Soccer Down Here, via email, soccerdownhere@gmail, or on the Twitch pitch, twitch.tv/soccerdownhere. We already got the bots in the Twitch room, so that's always a good sign on a Monday morning. Good times. 4-2 loss in Nashville. Lots of things going on out of this one. Let's just get into the Twitter, John, because I know a lot of people have had a lot of things to say. Let's just start there.
All right, Kyle Cram's in, and he came in overnight, and he says, does anyone remember 2018 Toronto? Hashtag Overreaction Monday, hashtag Perspective.
Yeah, and they had a bunch of injuries, and Atlanta's had some injuries. It's hard to stay on top in this league. It's a league of parity, and it's showing right now with Atlanta. And yeah, I mean that's a good sign to point to. I can buy that. Why don't you go further back, because I'm sure people had things to say after the game itself. It's normally how it works.
All right. I will continue to go back. We have some soccer over there material.
Yep, we'll save that for a little bit later, and we'll talk about it tonight on SOT. It's 7 o'clock.
Yep. And we had FC Waffle came in and says it's interesting how Atlanta United continues to play in the style of Frank de Boer.
They're not. This has been a really complicated thing that I'm just seeing it differently, and if that's on me, that's on me. Frank de Boer's style was not all that different than Tata Martino's style. We need to get in this understanding here. What Frank de Boer wanted to do differently was he wanted the team to be more organized defensively. He didn't want them to not go forward. That doesn't make any sense. The problem they're having right now is actually a little different. They have no confidence in the final third. The runs are not happening consistently enough off the ball. They are reluctant to try to make the final pass. They're worried about that defensive organization, so they don't want to give up a counter. And they hesitate, and they pull it back, and they keep possession, and they recycle. I know it's an easy shot because Frank's gone, but if anything, honestly, I think it's what we've seen since should point people to the direction that it wasn't all Frank de Boer's problem. There's a lot of things going on at the moment, and the biggest thing is the attack does not work as well without Josef Martinez. I'm sorry, that's just the case, and I know it's an easy thing to say, and I know there's no solution to it right now because he's not coming back to next year, but everything changed when that injury happened. There's just no denying it. So what do? You have to find a solution, and that's what they haven't found, and that's what Frank did not find during his time, and that's what Stephen Glass has not found just yet, because this team has a mental block going into the final third. Even when it looks like it's on, they're pulling the ball back. That's not something you're coached to do. That's not something you're taught to do. That's not something that would be a smart tactic. That doesn't make any sense. So I don't know. I would hope that people are starting to see that it's not just, it was all Frank de Boer's problem and that's everything, and now everything will be just fine because Frank de Boer's gone in time. No, it's not that easy. It's just not that easy.
Ben Kitchings at Ben's Charlie after the match says, I still love you, Atlanta United, but you're sleeping on the couch.
Yeah, you make the mistakes that you did in the first half. You're sleeping on the couch. It was a very bad start to the match on a set piece. It was an even worse second goal to give up on your own throw, and then it's a giveaway that turns into goal number 3. I mean, it was bad, and Brooks Lennon was at fault on all 3 of those, and Brooks Lennon has been outstanding for this team this season, but he fell asleep on 2 set pieces, one of your own and one that you're defending, and then had a giveaway that he compounded it by not defending well. So you give up 3 goals on mistakes, you're not winning many matches, period.
Taka, after the match this weekend, says, COVID has been devastating to the world in so many ways. If Atlanta was having this season at any other time, the effect upon the fan base would be awful, in all caps. But since it's 2020, we can't have fans anyway, and we toss it into the garbage with the rest of this tough year.
Yeah, I don't know, and I've seen some comments about Franco Escobar's tweet yesterday, and we'll go ahead and talk about it real quick. I want to pull that up and make sure I don't misquote Franco's tweet because it saddens me a little bit to see players have to say something like this. If in bad times you leave, in good times we don't need you. That's what Franco Escobar said. And I haven't seen any criticism of him for that, and there shouldn't be. This is a tough time for this team. Again, it's not because they want to be a bad team. It's not because somebody is doing this intentionally to sabotage it. That's not how pro sports work, y'all. You have a team that's battling to try to get better and to fight. And no, anybody who says this team's not fighting hard and they're giving up, you're completely and utterly wrong. And stop using that really bad gimmick of an insult. These guys work very, very hard to be able to do what they're doing. They're working harder than that right now because they're not living the normal life. When you leave the stadium and drive by a bar and see it packed, or you go by a restaurant and you see it full, these guys aren't doing that right now because they're doing what they have to do to be able to play and to be able to avoid getting sick. And they're sacrificing to do this. So please don't insult their effort. I don't think that's fair. Mistakes happen, and it's not an effort thing. Like, a mistake is a mistake. Brooks Lennon, who's been great this season, made 2 critical mistakes here. One bad pass is a separate issue, but 2 critical mistakes where Dax McCarty just steps in front of him, wins a header. That doesn't mean Brooks Lennon wasn't trying. That doesn't mean Brooks Lennon's a bad guy. That doesn't mean he wants the team to fail. It means he made 2 mistakes. It means he's a human being. Like, it happens. It happened at a really bad time, and it happened twice in a match. But it happens. I don't know. I hate that it would even be to the situation that you would feel like it would be really, really bad if people were in the building. I hate that it's really, really bad on social media with it. Doesn't mean you don't criticize, but criticize correctly. Criticize fairly, criticize correctly. Those are mistakes. And I've seen like some personal attacks about things, and it's like, really, guys? That's not how any of this works. So I don't know. Obviously, I'm a little biased towards it. I get it. Had people, for some reason, it seems like when the team plays well, we do a good job commentating, and when the team plays poorly, we do a really bad job. So yeah. I don't know how that works, but it stinks. I mean, it stinks. Like there's nothing you can do, and I appreciate the people who listen. I appreciate the people who say, thank you for the call and et cetera, et cetera. I really, really appreciate that because it's hard right now. It's hard, and nobody wants to be going through this if you're with Atlanta United. Nobody wants to be losing games in this way. Nobody wants to deal with being yelled at. It doesn't. Nobody wants that. So they're trying to play their way out of it by playing better. You're getting some good performances. You're getting some bad performances. You're getting mistakes. You're getting a lack of confidence. You're getting a team that, as Stephen Glass said, is a work in progress. And how could it not be? He took over midseason and has entered into the schedule where they played 5 games in 15 days. It's brutal. It's really hard to make any effective changes during that because it's just trying to get yourself back up to play again. So we'll see. I feel bad for Franco that he feels like he has to make that tweet. I mean, there's nothing wrong with what he said. Nothing at all wrong with what he said. I just hate that he would even be exposed to anything that would make him feel like he has to tweet that out because it shouldn't have to be said. It just shouldn't. That doesn't mean you can't criticize. I want to make that clear. But personal attacks are unfair. Saying people aren't trying is unfair. Those are things that I just don't think are fair because they're not accurate. Because a professional athlete doesn't just all of a sudden say, you know what, I'm just not going to try today. Nah. I worked hard all week. I've done all these things I have to do to be able to play. Nah, I'm just not going to give it anything today. I don't feel like it. That's not how it works at this level. Please understand that.
And Tafka added, said that this kind of performance makes you question everything and everyone associated with this club. Morale aside, confidence aside, how can we be this bad? And more importantly, how on earth do we fix it?
How do you fix it? You don't give up a goal in the first minute. How do you fix it? You don't have a throw-in for you in your own half turn into a goal in 3 touches, 4 touches, whatever it ended up being. That's how you fix it. That's honestly how you fix it. This game's a pretty simple one to diagnose, in my opinion. And I know it's 4 goals, and I know it's 4-2, so I'm wrong here. That's fine. I'll take it. That's cool. You give up a goal in the first minute, and you're not scoring a lot of goals, you're utterly screwed. You give up you get a goal on a beautiful free kick from Ezekiel Barco that Jeff Larenowitz, I think, might have gotten it with some of his red hair. Very slight touch. You get 1-1. Okay, great. You've got a lifeline. Then you give up a goal on a throw-in. And then you give up a goal on a turnover. You don't do those things. How do you fix it? You don't make mistakes like that. It's honestly that simple, because we didn't get to see how the game would have played out, period. Goal in the first minute changes everything. So everything else is different from that. This team has to stop conceding first half goals. 11 out of 14 goals they've conceded have been in the first half. That is how you fix it. And if that means you have to come into games, I mean, this game has nothing to do with this, but because of the way you conceded, but if that means you have to come into games very defensive in the first half and put everybody behind the ball and just look to hit on the counter and grow into the game and build up possession as you go, if that's something you have to do, maybe that's something you have to consider. It wouldn't have made a difference here because you gave up a goal on a corner kick in the first minute. You will have turnovers. Like, let's understand that, because you're not going to turn into a team that doesn't want the ball. You know, Atlanta United style, which is what a lot of people talk about, that's not going to go away. You're going to want the ball. So you're going to have turnovers. You have to deal with them better. That's something this team struggled with at times this season. But you have to be better on set pieces. You're giving up like half of your goals on dead ball situations, because you have to expand it after these last 2 games where you had your own corner that you conceded and your own throw-in that you conceded. The focus has to be there on dead ball situations. That's down to the individuals on the field being focused. It is. It's got to get better. But that's how you fix it. You don't fall behind. You get to play straight up. And then we see where we're at, because we don't even know that answer yet.
Nathan Pugh is in this morning. We caught up from everything after the match, and there were other conversations amongst each other yesterday, which was very cool to see. Nathan Pugh, he says, too much high adrenaline footy for me this weekend. Good thing I have plenty of energy bars to calm me down. Up the Reds, John, that is all. And his energy bar of choice is chocolate peanut butter with sea salt from the Sweet and Salty collection over at Cliff. And so that's a point to me.
You kind of needed to accentuate the Sweet and Salty collection there.
Sweet and, okay, so one more time, sweet and...
Well, it's you. It's yours.
Oh, sweet and salty.
That's better.
Is that better?
That's
sweet
a little better.
Salty? Okay. DKB is in this morning. With Bellows' constant improvement, do you think he has the potential to make it to Europe with at least a year more of growth? Do you think playing in Europe appeals to him?
Oh, 100%. Yes. He definitely wants to play in Europe, and he definitely has the ability to. This is not news. I don't know where the sour turn on George Bello started, because that was absurd when I started to see some of that. Kid's a teenager, and kid's had injuries, and kid had a nagging injury that was long-term that he couldn't get fixed until he had surgery. He had surgery last year. He's been fine. So his quality's always been there. He's a starting left back for the U.S. men's national team, and he's a player who can go to a big club in Europe. He's still a teenager, and he is in a run where he's getting his most consistent first-team time that he's had in his career. And he's getting better every match, and that's a really good sign. So, yeah, Bello is a star for the future for sure.
A couple of questions from Four-Card this morning on the Twitter side of things. Four-Card, first question, are we getting a number 6 this week?
Don't know. I doubt it, because the only player that's been rumored joining Atlanta United is not a 6, and it sounds like after there was some confusion, and I did not see the Fox Sports South interview with Carlos Bocanegra. I think Doug had tweeted out that he heard it as players or new faces, I think is what he heard. And Doug tweeted that he had confirmed it is a player, not players. So there's been one player linked. That doesn't mean that's the player, but it's a safe bet at this point. If I was putting juice boxes in that scenario, I'd probably be putting good ones on that because that's the only thing we have to go on. The team is better with Jeff Larentowicz as the 6, I think, right now. And I think that can see you through the rest of the year. I don't think a 6 changes the things you need to change in the short term. In the short term, you need somebody to play with Ezequiel Barco because he can't do it all himself. He's going to try, but he can't. And that's not a knock on him either. I don't know. There's always been the criticisms of Barco and Pitti because they like to dribble. Please bring me players who like to dribble. Bring me players who have that confidence. I like that kind of player. But he needs somebody to play with. And if Marcelino Moreno, which is the player that's been linked, if he's the guy, I think he could be a good counterpart for Ezequiel Barco. And that will help this attack, and that will help things in the final third. I think that's the quicker fix at the moment because of selling Pity Martinez. I do think you will be looking for a 6 in the offseason.
Then the follow-up from Four Card, who's getting sold/moved this week to make way for the new guy or guys?
Well, new guy, nobody, because you have a spot. If there are multiple players, which it's been reported there's not, then you'd have to move somebody else. But there's a spot to move somebody in right now. So you don't have to move anything.
Then somewhat of a follow-up to his follow-ups. Four Card says, who's getting the number 6? When are we getting a number 6? Why aren't we getting a number 6 now? I really think we need a number 6.
You're going to get it next year, I think. Or you're going to get it after the season. You'll get it for next season. I think that's the more likely thing. And right now, I feel like the team is at its best with Jeff Larentowicz on the field. And it's just going to be down to figuring out how often he can be on the field and how you can make that work. But, yeah, he's the best one right now.
Shiva's in this morning. I was not a big fan of the lineup on Saturday. Nothing against playing Tyler. I loved having him on. But if we need to work on chemistry in the attack, then we need to have the same lineup. I think Torres and Dom should have started.
Well, you can't. I mean, that's the problem, Shiva, and that's what stinks about all this is you're playing 3 days after a game. Dom did a hamstring. He couldn't have started. I mean, if he had started, he would have been out in 20 minutes. He's got a hamstring issue now, so he's probably going to miss a few weeks. You can't just keep rolling guys out because they're going to injure themselves. And that's the problem. Muscle injuries happen when you have a schedule like this, so you have to rotate. Tyler Wolff was good. I didn't have a problem with Tyler Wolff at all. He added some energy to the team. I thought he was good on the ball. I liked his defensive work rate as well. Tyler doesn't look like a player who's barely played at the professional level. He does not have that appearance. So I know what you're saying in terms of building chemistry, but it's impossible with 5 games in 15 days. You can't think chemistry, it's survival, to be honest. And it's sad, but that's the case. That's where we are in 2020.
Chris Hutchison's in this morning. Says, I'm glad Glassy didn't try to sugarcoat Saturday night, but I would like to know just what in the name of the wide world of sports we're doing right now. Is this tryouts or what?
No, it's not tryouts. It's you have to rotate the squad because you're playing 5 games in 15 days. There's literally no way around it. If you play the same player in all those games, what happens? What happened to Brooks Lennon on Saturday? A game where he's gassed mentally and physically, and he makes key mistakes. And then people start to criticize him because they say he's no good, and they want Julian Gressel back because of one bad game, and that starts to happen. And that's the alternative is to rotate the squad. And you can't always rotate everybody. That's the other thing is you only have so many people you can play. So, no, it's not tryouts. I don't think that's fair. The schedule is the schedule, and it's brutal at the moment. This is why teams in Europe have talked about the schedule that they're about to face, saying it's brutal, saying it's inhuman. That's what Jose Mourinho has said. You're trying to get these games in, and you're trying to get these games in as best you can. You're trying to get as many games in as best you can. There are financial considerations. There are sponsorship elements. There are broadcast partnerships and broadcast contracts. You're trying to do a lot of different things right now, and it's very, very difficult, and it is affecting the level of play because you can't keep putting the same lineup out there game after game right now, not with as many games in a short period of time.
Chris Ashley's thread from this morning. Perhaps we can discuss Leeds punching Liverpool in the mouth and silencing the haters. I know they lost, but man, they look like they belong to soccer over there, you say? Okay. Maybe we can chat about the fact that through 2 seasons and 5 matchups, the Greenville Triumph have fully embraced #NoMingo by not allowing a single goal to Madison in 2 years. 2, #Triumph Weekly, you say? Okay. We could discuss a name change for the #Power Hour that Jason suggested. How about #MySDH Morning? 2 potentially trademark infringing, you say? Okay.
Yeah, there's that.
Can we just have a 2-hour bad food takes with John show? No one wants that. No one wants that.
No, that's not happening.
Anything to avoid reliving that match from Saturday evening in Nashville. That's his #Overreaction Monday.
Yeah, sorry, Chris. What's next?
4-card. Doesn't have an overreaction after his initial salvo of questions. But he says 3 road games in 7 days, all with day of game travel, following a condensed schedule for 2 weeks prior. Times are tough, but they will get better.
It's accurate. I mean, say what you want. I was just going on the number of minutes you're playing in 15 days. The travel, 3 of those are on the road, and 3 of those are day of the game travel. That's going to affect it too. It's real. There's nothing you can do when you're already struggling going into it to create chances. It's not going to get better by playing more games in a short period of time like that. It's just not. You're going to hit a wall, and they've hit a wall, and it shows. So, I'll be curious to see what the schedule is like this week. I would assume they had yesterday off. I'd assume they might have today off. I don't know if they'll do a lighter day tomorrow and then do a couple of good training days on Wednesday and Thursday. Walk through Friday and play. When I say walk through, it's just a lighter session. Whatever you do, I think you've got to put work on set pieces. You've got to simplify your set piece defending to where it is more effective. If it's just all straight up man-to-man, then somebody's got to organize it. If it's zonal, which I don't like, it's almost impossible to do right now with so many new faces in. But there's just simple things. I mean, getting beat at the near post with a flick on is just something you can't have. So that's just what it is. You got to put a lot of time into set piece defending this week.
Katie Weaver's in this morning. Curious about everyone's feelings now versus after the Orlando turn-in. I don't know if it's that we've actually created chances of late or that I'm giving the boys a pass because of injury, fatigue, lack of training sessions, or if I'm just checking out. I'm frustrated but not hopeless.
No, that's a really good point because it's felt night and day to me, to be honest. Nothing in this run of games has matched the first half against Columbus. Nothing. That was, in a must-win situation, a flat, awful performance in the first half. Second half was better because it's desperate and you're throwing everything at it. And okay, first half was the worst half of the season. It doesn't even compare to Saturday to me. It's not even close because of the stakes, because of the situations. It was oof. You're seeing far more, I think, things to hang your hat on right now in these games. George Bellows' performances. Anton Walks, and I know there's been criticism of him from Saturday. I think he has been far better than expected, playing a far bigger role than expected. I don't put as much criticism on him from Saturday, by the way. I think a lot of that's out of his hands. He could have rescued it, but he's not at fault. Those are two different things to me. No, I feel like the team is headed somewhere because now we've got Jurgen Damm, now we've got Kubo Torres. Now you're seeing where it can go. You just got to get there. And that road has been a lot longer and had a whole lot more potholes on it than we expected. But the schedule has been a big factor in it. And people will say it's an excuse, and people will complain that I'm saying anything other than I'm angry at these guys and they're all bad and they should get rid of everybody. But that's not how you break down what happened. Fatigue's a thing. Fatigue's a real thing here. And I think it was obvious with Brooks Linden. The question, I've seen it come up in the Twitch pitch, is, well, why didn't he get rotated out and not play? And that's a good question. Don't know. Don't know how he looked in whatever training you were able to do after Wednesday. Don't know what he said. Don't know what his numbers look like in terms of support science. And, did it look like he was tired? Was he playing like he was tired? I didn't think he was playing like he was tired just from the eye test. We kept expecting him to be tired. He didn't look like he was tired on Wednesday. That's what's hard about this, is you can try to measure all these things, but you get into those moments where it is a mental mistake, and that's what these two were. That's a little bit harder to measure. You can't measure somebody's mental focus or if they're fatigued as easily as you can. Well, how many times did they sprint? How many times did they run? How many miles did they cover? Those kinds of things. And both of the two big mistakes. The giveaway happens. That was tired legs. The defending, now he's had a couple of issues here where there's been a 1v1 situation and he's tried to be too aggressive. That's something that needs to be worked on. But the first two, the corner and the throw, that's flat out mental fatigue. He's just flat-footed. He just reacts late. We all do it. When we're tired, we react to things late, right? That's what happened to those in my case, or in my opinion anyway. Because the corner, Dax McCarty steps in front of him. The throw, Dax McCarty steps in front of him and wins a header. So I don't know. I thought he would be rotated as well at some point during all this. Something gave the team the reason not to, and whether that was the numbers that the sports science department was getting, or Brooks saying, no, I'm good to go. I'm good. Let's go. Because he's a gamer. He's going to fight, and he wants to play. And he wants to help this team win. And maybe sometimes, which we see this with players from time to time, they need to try to take a step back at times and realize that, hey, I'm not 100%. I do need to take a seat here and let somebody else go. Brooks Lennon's the best option you had in that position. If everybody's healthy, he's playing in that role right now, because Jurgen Damm is not 100%. And that there's not a question about that. I mean, obviously with him doing a hamstring, he's not. If everybody full go has got all the acclimation done and all that, then we're having a different conversation. But right now, Jurgen Damm can't play as many games. Brooks Lennon, you thought he could. He couldn't. And it hurt you. It's a mistake. It's a mistake. And don't know where the mistake fell from. If it was on Brooks saying he could go and he shouldn't have, if it's on the team for not recognizing something in terms of his workload, I don't know. But I didn't see anything on Wednesday to say, oh, he can't play on Saturday. I didn't see it. And I didn't really hear any of that in the conversation during the week either.
Nix is in this morning.
What's up, Jason?
And he says, I don't even think this is an overreaction, but Saturday night was the low point for the history of this team. Horror show of a start, and continued to compound their mistakes. Lennon finally hit a wall and got exposed. Walks, who had looked bright recently, contributed to nearly all of Nashville's goals.
That was where I saw the Walks thing. I think that's a little harsh, but okay.
Hasetu and Wolf contributed little. Barco trying to do it all himself because he looks around and asks who else is going to. I will never leave this team, but Jeebus, this is going to be hard to watch. Hashtag overreaction Monday.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know. I don't think of teams that way. I've watched bad teams throughout my life, and I've never said, like, well, I'm not going to leave. I don't know. I think that was for effect, is my assumption from Jason. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to think of a worse point. I would probably argue the Columbus game in MLS is back. It felt worse to me. Maybe because there was an opportunity to go through. Because if you win that game, you're going through, as we found out from other results. I think that would probably feel like it to me. 2017, there's nothing that felt that way because everything was new and everything was unexpected. I mean, even the penalty loss in the playoffs didn't have that feel to me. The loss in the playoffs last year didn't have that feel to me because you're so close. There was nothing from last season that had anything like that kind of feel for me, even early in the season where people were freaking out. So I would probably say the Columbus game is slightly more just because I think there was a little more on the line. But it's a valid argument. I mean, it's not a fun place to be. It's not a fun place to be, calling a game and knowing, all right, Twitter's going to explode afterwards, and people are going to be very angry and yelling, and there's no point in even saying anything on it because everything's going to be screamed at and it's going to get worse. So I'm just going to play FIFA and go to sleep when I get tired. That's what it turns into. And it's rough. It's rough. But, this is where 2020 is at this point, sadly. You've got to go up from here. And how you do that is not an easy answer because of where things are. Let's look at the overall state of things at the moment. You're going to be hiring a new manager. When is a valid question and a hard one to answer. You're going to be signing a new designated player. That sounds like that's going to happen sooner rather than later. Katie Weaver said, how's DC United Twitter looking about now? The problem is they've been bad for a while off and on, so I think they're numb to it. Yeah. It's still new here at the moment, and I'm pretty sure, temporary. So right now it is an explosion of a reaction to it. Designated player coming, it sounds like. I would imagine that would be sooner anyway. Coach, we don't know the timeline. Barco will go at some point. I would be surprised if he's here next season.
Yeah.
Although it's possible. The market's really unpredictable right now. The market is really hard to guess on right now. But I think probably an offer will come for him that is suitable for the club and for him and for a club that he wants to go to, because he's being linked to good places for him to go. So I don't think he'll be here next season. So that's another designated player spot. This U22 initiative is going to give the team some ability to go out and sign more players off the books, off the cap. It's a weird feeling right now because there's going to be a lot of change. That's outside of moving on from players. That's outside of other questions that will come up. But there's going to be a lot of new, impactful people in the club in the next 3 to 4 months. So, it will change. How exactly and what it looks like, there's no way to know at the moment. And that unknown can be a little scary, absolutely. But I feel like I see that coming, so this doesn't feel like as low of a point to me. Just me, and that's just my opinion. I mean, it's just an opinion kind of question. I think Columbus was worse, where at that point I didn't know what was going to change. Things have happened since that. It's like, okay, things are coming and things are going to change here, and we'll see how it goes.
Shiva, as a part of the timeline this morning, says she's not giving Atlanta United a pass because of fatigue or injuries. Other teams are going through it also. Her only pass is that new faces have not had a preseason to mesh with the team. I don't recall having the same lineup, not even in midfield, in any game, and that's a problem.
I just don't think you can. And look at what other teams are doing too. They're not having the same guys go out game after game. It's not a pass. It's not saying that, like, oh, you can lose and there's nothing wrong with it. No, but it's a reason why you're having to rotate the lineup, and it's a reason why you're having poor performances at times. They're just you can't say that it doesn't affect it. And it's affecting everybody. And you're seeing a lot of inconsistent results around the league. All over the place. And why? This reason. And I think what Shiva says about some of the new faces and some of the players you're asking to make an impact is very accurate, because the teams that are having more success during this are the teams that have been more settled this season. So that's a big help. Atlanta United is not that.
Abby is in on the Twitter side of things, and she says, so glad that the team will have a normal week in quotation marks.
Yeah, they won't next week, but they'll have one this week at least, so it'll help. Just a couple of days off will help. Last week was a grind for them. I mean, I remember the week last year of home game on Sunday, Vancouver on Wednesday, and then Red Bull on Sunday.
Yeah.
And that wasn't day of the game travel. That was play Sunday, travel Monday to Vancouver. So they went early. Traveled late in the day on Monday, if I remember right. And then were there Tuesday. They trained Tuesday. And then Wednesday played. Flew back overnight, so got here early Thursday morning. Probably did a regen late in the day. Trained Friday. Traveled to Red Bull on Saturday. And then played Sunday afternoon, I think. Mid-afternoon, if I remember right.
Caleb Cook is in this morning, and he says, I just want us to hire a manager so we can start this so-called rebuild in quotation marks. I haven't seen many rumors. Is that a good or bad thing?
It's not a bad thing because it's how this club is operated. And it depends on what rebuild you're talking about, Caleb, because the manager is not going to be in charge of the rebuild of the roster. The manager is not going to be involved in that. They will have input. So not be involved is not fair. They're not going to be the one making the decisions on that. That's just how it's going to be. And that's how it's always been, and that's how it is at a lot of clubs around the world, the majority of clubs around the world. That's reality. Even Tata Martino did not have the final say over the build of the roster, and that was a different conversation starting at the very beginning of the club's history, where you don't have to worry about moving people to create space. The manager would come in and implement the style of play, which Atlanta United has an idea of what that's supposed to be. They've kind of lost that a little bit at the moment, which happens. I mean, think to Barcelona. We've seen Barcelona lose their style of play at times. People said Tata Martino lost their style of play when he came on for Tito Villanova. And they've struggled with different managers ever since, coming and going, of losing or getting that style of play back. That's where you are with Atlanta. You want somebody to come in and get this team playing the way that Atlanta United's leadership wants them to play. But the rebuild part of the roster, the manager's not as big of a role as people think it is. And people cannot like that, but there's very few clubs in the world where that's the case. In MLS, the only one where the manager has that say is Peter Vermes in Kansas City. And he was the technical director before he came onto the touchline to manage when Kurt Anolfo failed. And he stayed ever since. And he's had that control. And he's been there for 10 years. There's nobody else. Bob Bradley doesn't have complete control of the roster in LAFC. Nobody else has complete control. Jose Mourinho talks about it all the time. Just ask him about what he needs on the roster and what he wants. He doesn't have complete control. Pep Guardiola doesn't have complete control over the roster. He didn't at Bayern. He didn't. He doesn't at Manchester City. He didn't at Barcelona. They have input, and that's helpful, but they don't have control, and it's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen, and it's not abnormal for that to not be the case. But the rebuild of the and it's not even really a rebuild. It is a
retooling?
No, you're going to go down roads that aren't it. It's just getting back to what this club wants to be on the field, which is playing fast, which is playing with speed, which is getting numbers forward, which is taking chances, which is taking risks, but also balancing that with smart, responsible defending and players fulfilling their defensive responsibilities. That balance has gotten out of whack to where now it's fear of taking risks. And you got to get back to the other side of it. You got to get back to where you're sending numbers forward and you're taking risks going forward. That's the biggest thing the manager will have to get to, and you can do that in a variety of different ways and formations and shapes. That's not what's going to define the new manager, but you have to get that mentality back.
Kevin from Charlotte is in this morning.
Refocusing. There you go, Jigger Ray. Thank you.
And Kevin wants to know, can we not talk about soccer today? Okay, thanks. How about a top 5 list of 80s movies?
Wow.
Blues Brothers, Caddyshack,
Okay.
Breakfast Club.
You're going to go in
Trading Places, Better Off Dead.
Yeah, you're going to go in completely different directions. You're older than me.
Yes.
I will go with, and this is off the top of my head. Let's see. Ferris Bueller.
Yes.
16 Candles.
Good. Yes.
I might go Ghostbusters.
Okay.
Major League was 90, right?
Let's find out. I think it was.
Bull Durham gets in my 80s movie.
Yeah.
For sure. I think Major League got into the 90s.
89, actually.
Oh, well, then there you go, because that's one of my all-time favorites. So I'll throw 2 baseball movies in there. It's funny, because I don't really watch much baseball anymore, but okay. Yeah, Major League, Bull Durham, they both get in there.
Yeah, Bull Durham 88 and Major League 89.
And we're done.
So
We've already solved that problem. That didn't take too long, Kevin.
Let's see. Who else is... and Joe Johnston has said, or 80s songs, to add to Kevin from Charlotte.
I could go on all day. And I did see that Kevin tried to eliminate me being able to use REM songs in that.
Oh!
It's not that hard. I mean, I have plenty of bands I can go to. Just like Heaven was suggested by The Cure, and I would go A Night Like This. It Takes Two, Rob Bass and DJ Easy Rock. What else? Take On Me, Aha.
Yes. Well, actually, yeah, for me, The Sun Always Shines on TV from that same album.
Oh, yeah, you're cool and trendy. I forgot. Let's see. I mean, you could go into Appetite for Destruction, and Rocket Queen from Guns N' Roses would get on there for me. I think Dr. Feelgood was 1990, so I couldn't pull any Motley Crue on it. I would take, I think Home Sweet Home was from the 80s, from Motley. Yeah, that's off the top of my head. So that's just songs that I immediately thought of. If you give me that in like 20 minutes, I'd probably come up with 5 different songs.
What's your most underrated REM song, since you can't use it here in the stacks?
Underrated?
Yeah.
My favorite one, Wolves Lower from Chronic Town in 82.
Okay. The Colonel is in this morning, and he's adding to all of our SOT discussion. He says, Swans away collect 3 solid points to start the championship season. Just take care that it doesn't become a discussion of how many times Swansea City and Atlanta United have won on the same day. Hashtag Somos Atlanta.
Yeah, how'd your Swans look? Did you get to see it?
No, I did not. But, hey, I'll take a win over Preston North End, and we'll look at it on the next episode of Normandy Road, which will be coming out this week.
There you
go. Daniel Price is in this morning. He says, so, my thoughts about the match. I really don't know what to expect. I think he says, I really don't know what to accept. It was, I really don't know what to say. There's a word missing. Except it was bad. It makes me sad. I wish I could have been there pushing them harder with my voice, because right now they need their fans, the fans in their corner. It's not clicking right now at all. They need to figure out this funk, get back to basics. If you look around the league, everyone seems to be projecting forward and getting better, while we just seem to 1 step forward, 2 steps back.
There would be teams that would definitely argue that idea of everybody's pushing forward. I don't think the whole league is getting better while Atlanta's not. That's not the case. There are teams with problems. There are teams who are doing pretty well. And there are teams that are up and down right now. And that's the biggest thing that jumps out to me, is it's impossible to predict this league at the moment. I mean, the LAFC Portland game last night, after LAFC loses 3-0 back-to-back times, they win 4-2. They go find goals. Dallas beating Houston after Houston had played really well. Dallas winning 2-1. The teams that have been the most consistent, I mean, Columbus, which had to battle against Chicago. Philadelphia has been very consistent in their performances. Toronto's had a blip here lately. Orlando has been good, and I think that was a statement kind of win over Miami on the weekend. Out west, Sporting had a 5-2 loss at home to Houston. I mean, that's not what you would expect from the number 1 team in the Western Conference, and that happened. Seattle has been pretty good and pretty consistent, but they've had some losses that have been surprising. Minnesota's had some results that have been surprising. LAFC we've talked about. The Galaxy have maybe been the ones that have been the biggest surprise and consistent surprise for a little while here in the last few matches. So maybe they're the ones, but it's all over the map. Wildchar with a question real quick on the Twitch pitch before we get back to Twitter. Expansion teams more talented than Atlanta United. I still can't decide. I want to touch on two elements of this. First off, the comments that got Nashville riled up from Miles Robinson for media availability on Friday, I'm sorry, but I feel like they were taken completely and utterly out of context. I did not think he was diminishing Nashville by any stretch. We talked about this on Southern Fried Soccer yesterday. I said I thought they were taken out of context. And it's bad for a guy like Miles, who's not a guy who comes out with all these big bold proclamations in the media. I hope he keeps talking to the media, but I felt like this was twisted. I don't think it's crazy to look at Atlanta's roster and say that it's a better roster than Nashville. You're talking about it on paper. You're not saying they're not talented. You're saying you believe in your guys. There's nothing wrong with that. I think that got really twisted out of proportion. I wasn't a big fan of it. But in terms of, are they more talented than the expansion teams? Yeah, but these expansion teams are not Minnesota expansion. They're not Cincinnati expansion. They're probably a lot more similar to what Atlanta did in expansion in 2017. They're good. Nashville's a good team. They don't have right now, until they get Cadiz, and we'll see if he's the guy, they don't have that firepower up top to threaten. Yes, they can get 4 goals when they get 3 off of mistakes. Yes, that happened. But they don't get a whole lot from the run of play. Miami, let's see with Higuain. Let's see with Matuidi full percentage. But I don't think that back line is better than Atlanta's back line when everybody's healthy. So, no, I think Atlanta's a more talented team. But talent on paper only gets you so far. Still got to have the performances. Is what it is. But, yes, I think Atlanta's more talented, but I think Miami and Nashville have both done a good job. I think Nashville's a better team than Miami. I think they're a more coherent group of players that fit together better. Miami might, with Higuain and with Matuidi, have more highlights and flashing lights at the top of it. But I think Nashville is the better team between Nashville and Miami.
Michael Head is in this morning. He says, don't want to be all negative other than Jeff and Bello scoring. I have nothing to add. Come on, Chelsea, save my sports weekend. #Go Blues.
And that's not the intention here, but Barco gets a lot of credit for that free kick.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, go back and look at Kaku's free kick that he delivered that Aaron Long headed home. And Aaron Long headed it home. It wasn't a glancing blow from him like it was from Lorenowitz. And everybody was raving about Kaku. Why is Barco not getting any credit? It's a great free kick. He put it into a spot where if Jeff doesn't touch it, it's probably still going in. I don't know if Jeff's touch changed anything. It's a well-taken set piece. We need more of those because you're going to get those set pieces. You've got to be dangerous on them. So that was well taken all the way around. That got you back to 1-1. It made up for the first mistake. You made up a couple more.
Domer's in this morning on the Twitter side. And Domer says, in an effort to not add to the pile, I shall go with the words of our spirit coach, Gennaro Gattuso. Sometimes it may be good. Sometimes it may be.
Yeah, that's accurate.
He has spoken.
That is accurate. It does happen from time to time. It's just when it happens after a loss and after a bad result and after not seeing a lot of spark, then you get to this point where it piles on. And look, that's where you are. You can't argue your way out of it. That's where you are. You've got to be better on Saturday against Miami. You've got to get revenge on Miami in that one. And then you've got to dial it up on short rest against Dallas, a young team. And then you've got to dial it up on short rest and go to Chicago, a team that is starting to find their way. Chicago's not bad. Chicago is a team that has had a lot of changes, and I think they're one of those, like Shiva mentioned earlier, trying to find that chemistry, that they've struggled at times with that because players are getting tired. They can't keep fielding the same group, but they need to field the same group because they're still trying to figure out people's names and build something. So they're a work in progress as well, but they haven't had the injury type of issues that Atlanta's had. So Chicago won't be easy. Dallas won't be easy. Miami won't be easy. You got 3 tough games coming up next week, but at least you get a week to prepare for it.
Eric Englert is in this morning. And on his hashtag Overreaction Monday, George Bello is already a top 5 left back in this league. Also, the talent in this team is not the worst in the league. I don't know what we need, but I just don't believe we're this bad top to bottom, nor do I think we need to blow up the team for 2021.
No, it's definitely not the worst talent in the league. There's no question that's not the case. No, you don't need to blow up the roster for 21. No, you're going to have changes because you're going to have players that you have to make decisions on contracts, and you're going to have players that you're going to have to make decisions on. Is that option amount, is that too high? What do I need to do here? Those things are going to happen, and you're going to see some changes in that. But blow it up? No, you don't need to do that either. Bello being a top 5 left back in this league, it's hard to argue. I mean, he's been that good so far. It has been a short sample size, so that's the only counter I would put to it. But his performances over the last few games, absolutely. He is defensively, if people had questions, I hope they've been answered. And he gets a goal that he kind of needed in the attack because he's had some moments. He had him in the MLS's back tournament that you wanted more from him in the final third. You didn't get it. You get it here. It's a good finish. So the defense is what's impressed me, though. He's been really smart with his defensive work in the last few matches, and his tackling has been outstanding. So Bello has that potential. He has the potential to be the best left back in the league. Still got work to get there. Go ahead.
Yeah. John Nason is in this morning, and I did not listen to this on allocation disorder, so I'm just going to read the quote that John gives from Sam Stejkal. Quote, "It hasn't worked since Tata Martino left. In fact, it's failed pretty spectacularly if we're being honest," end quote. So John says, if failed pretty spectacularly is 2 trophies and almost hosting for another trophy, discuss.
That's just hyperbole to get attention because he knows it's going to get people riled up. No, it has not failed spectacularly since Tata Martino left. You were the 3rd best team in the whole regular season last year. Not at the end, not in a week, not any of that. Over the entire regular season, you were 3rd best team. You got to the conference final, which is where the 3rd best team should get to. You did. You won the Open Cup. I thought that was important. Campiones Cup's a 1 game. You won it. You lifted a 2nd trophy. That's not a spectacular failure. That's nonsense. This year, if you wanted to argue, if you didn't have, last year didn't happen, and it was just this year, then we're having a different conversation. For me, again, still, I don't think it's a spectacular failure. It's a failure this year. But last year was the first year after Tata Martino left, and that's the furthest thing possible from a spectacular failure. The only thing that would be further would be winning MLS Cup and winning every trophy in front of you and all that. But it's hyperbole. It gets clicks. Everybody wants to hate on Atlanta when it's not going well, and that's fine. We'll see what happens when it goes well.
Mm-hmm. Tafka disagrees with the, quote, FDB style was close to Tata, end quote, theory.
We've had this. I'm not going to rehash it because we talked about it for the whole of 2019. We talked about it for most of the beginning of 2020. And let me make the point clear before we move on because we don't need to rehash the greatest hits.
Right.
Frank de Boer did not get to the way he wanted to play consistently enough, and that was the problem. When he had the team playing the way that I thought he was intending for them to play, it was not all that different from Tata Martino. I hope that makes sense. His soccer mentality, his soccer philosophy is not that different. They have a lot of commonality between the two.
Nothing like having your Chrome completely collapse on you. So I'm having to reopen Chrome here for a second. What's going on the Twitch pitch while I reopen my Chrome here?
Way to mess us up in the middle of it. I've got Tafka's thing here. Tafka went on a long run here. Tata wanted quick strikes in transition, even at the risk of a giveaway. That's not true. What Tata wanted was to play in the other team's half as quickly as possible. Atlanta United was one of the top possession teams in the league in 2017 even, but 2018 far more. It became more important. So, no, he didn't want quick strikes in transition. He wanted to get quickly into the attacking half. That's a very different thing. Then they would settle at times. When they were able to keep going, they kept going. But you don't have... I think they were third in possession in 2018, third or fourth. You don't have that if you're only wanting quick strikes. That just doesn't happen. FDB did change the way Joseph played. Under Tata, he was constantly harassing the offside line, trying to get in behind, stretching the field. FDB pulled him closer to a hold-up that works in combination with the wings. That's true. And I think he got more out of Joseph. And I think the best was coming from that, which we're not going to see. FDB was patient, build up, nothing else. He wanted 40 passes around the 18 before any attempt to shove in the dagger. Look, this is the problem. And Tafka, I'm not angry with you. I want to make this clear. Nobody wants 40 passes around the 18. Let's not put out stuff that's just completely and utterly incorrect. Why would you? Why would you say, no, do you have an opening? No. Oh, you have an opportunity? No. You can shoot now? No. I need 40 passes. Time them. Add them up. I'll hold up a sign when you get to 40. No. Let's not do this stuff. The reason why he wanted patient buildup, which is the same thing Tata started to want in 2018. Don't get it twisted. This team evolved from the beginning of 2017 to the end of the regular season in 2018. I'm not going to include the postseason. They evolved into a team that wanted the ball more. Why? Because when you're organized in your possession, you can handle counterattacks better. Period. It's that simple. You do the build-up play to stay organized. Because if you have a turnover, you can win the ball back and you can defend the counter. That's why. Tata Martino talked about this team being better defensively a lot. The end of 2017 all the way through 2018. And ultimately, he had to scrap it and go to a different style in the postseason in 2018. That worked, and that's a credit to him, and it's a credit to the players for being able to adjust in that way. But the reason why is they weren't good enough defensively. Period. You don't win MLS Cup if you play the same way that you did in the 2018 season. You weren't good enough defensively. So you have a new manager come in. What's he going to see that he feels like he needs to change? What the last manager talked about, being better defensively. One way you do that is by build-up play. But no, the part in the 40 pass around the 18, that's false. Because nobody who plays in a possession style wants that. That's incorrect. That's misreading the situation here. You want the passes in the build-up phase to stay organized. And Pep Guardiola's talked about it before, about, I think it's 14 or 15 passes to organize the team. That's not in the final third. That's not around the 18. That is in the build-up to keep your back line together, to connect to your midfield, to be able to try to win the ball back immediately if you lose it, but also to get back and defend. Nobody wants you to pass the ball around needlessly around the 18. No manager wants that. There is not one in the world. Nobody will argue that one with you. It's not going to happen. That's not what Frank de Boer wanted. He wanted them to be more organized defensively. And it sounds like the players pushed back on that. And it didn't ever happen consistently enough. So, you went to a more open style in the second half of the season, which wasn't all that different from the way Tata Martino was playing, and you got results with it. But you also gave up bad goals with it. Flat out. That's the reality. So, that's my opinion as we go with this. Of course, ay Dios mío. FDB even admitted that he and the players came to a mixture of the two approaches. Yes, because everybody evolves. Tata 2018 was not 2017. Understand this. Please. You don't have as much possession as Tata Martino teams did if you don't value possession. It doesn't happen by accident. You do the possession to be organized defensively. That's the point. That's the point. And for whatever reason, Frank couldn't make that stick. Tata didn't get the defense the way he wanted it to be. and he had to change it going into the postseason. Frank never got the point to stick. And ultimately, that's on Frank. That's on the manager, because you can't change 22 players who aren't getting it to stick. You change the manager. And I don't know where it broke down. But the idea behind it, it's pretty basic. There's nothing weird about it. But the part about 40 passes around the 18, that's no. He didn't want the passes there. He wanted the passes deeper in the team to build up. There's a massive difference in those two. And Tafka is not the only person who said that. Tafka put it out there, and I appreciate him putting it out there because we get to talk about it deeper. But the 40 passes around the 18 part is incorrect about Frank. It is. That's just not true. He didn't want that. No manager wants that.
Ellen Reynolds is in this morning. Ellen says, I feel awful for these guys. This year's been hard on everyone, and watching them lose game after game is frustrating, but I can't imagine how they must be feeling with their statuses with the club and their careers on the line. That's
the hardest thing. It takes a mental toll. I think you can hear it with the players after matches. It's not fun. It's not fun to go out there and work yourself to exhaustion and not get the payoff. It's not fun. So it's definitely going to be stressful for them. And the part about playing for careers, that's accurate. Because if you have a new manager come in, as we said, they're going to have input. They're going to have guys that they like. They're going to have guys that they don't like. They're going to look at the roster, and they're going to rate somebody differently than Stephen Glass does, than Frank DeBoer did if they were here under Tata. They're going to look at him differently because they're a different person. So that's how it goes. So you have to put forward as good of a performance as you possibly can to impress whoever's coming. That's pressure. It's tough, and you're gonna have new faces, and you know that. And you know, like if you're in the central midfield and you see the rumors about Marcelino Moreno, you know, hey, he's gonna come in and potentially take one of my spots. I better be playing well to keep my spot. That's tough. But that's the life of a professional athlete. And it's harder when the results aren't there. It's always harder when the results aren't there because all this other stuff creeps into it. So we shall see. But yeah, the players are dealing with a lot right now. It's not an easy time at the moment.
Not knowing when El Mataflo joined in this morning, he poses this question. He says, I liked Barco and Bello on Saturday, missed the first half due to a power outage. How did Wolf look on a #dejected Monday?
I thought Wolf looked not like a typical 17-year-old. His composure's good. His defensive work rate was good. He had fresh legs, obviously, which helps you a ton. Wolf, at that age, you know, he needs games to get better and more impactful. But he's not a player who... He's not shy on the field, if that makes sense, from his personality and the way that he plays. He's not like a lot of teenagers that you will see who are shy and shrink away from either the ball or from, you know, just trying to hide on the field. He's not that, and that's a good sign. Did he do enough to get another start? Well, maybe because of the Jurgen Damm injury, but I think John Gallagher probably gives you a little bit more at the moment, but you're going to need Wolf in these next 3 games. You're going to see him, I think. I think you're going to see him either from a start or off the bench a couple of times. He will play. He's worked his way into a guy that can play and can help this team.
Sam Williamson's in this morning. He says he just tuned in, so I don't know if this has been talked about, but he hasn't seen Castro on the match day rosters. So I was wondering, can the club terminate a loan to clear a roster spot for an incoming player? And why haven't we seen Castro?
I don't know why we haven't seen him. The last time we did was poor. And honestly, since what game was that? Was that Orlando at home, I think, where Castro and Adams both started and both were pulled at halftime?
Yeah.
And we haven't seen either one play since.
Yeah.
I mean, there were poor performances. Castro, I don't know the terms of the loan agreement. So it's impossible to answer the question. Generally, there is some form of an out in those agreements. Now, this one you did pick up. You extended it in, like, June, I think, because it was up at the end of June. and you extended it for the rest of the season, you'd have to pay a penalty, I would assume, some kind of a fee to terminate it early, unless you work out an agreement with Estudiantes in Argentina. They're not playing games until the beginning of October. So I don't know if they would want to take his salary back on the books, but if your penalty to send him back is essentially to pay his salary, maybe you can make all these things work. But yeah, if he's not going to factor in the rest of the way and you're looking to add players and you're not going to keep him after the season, then it would make sense to look at doing it, but you'd probably have to pay some kind of a fee to make it happen.
Five Stripes Forever is in this morning. And this is a question I'm sure a lot of folks have. What do they do in regen? Massage? Ice baths? Do they rewatch the games? Post-mortem? I'd love a breakdown of what a normal training and game week looks like sometimes, if you ever need content.
Yeah, it's different manager to manager, and I don't know how Stephen Glass does it versus Frank DeBoer versus Tata Martino, because those are days that we're not there. I mean, look, we're not at training very often. Even like your media in totality isn't there for long stretches of it. So generally regen, when I say regen, I'm talking about the on-the-field stuff. The video review would be separate. And it depends. It just depends on the situation. There are players who will do massage. There are players who will do bike or treadmill work, light stuff on the field. It's a light day, essentially. What you'll see a lot of times is the players who didn't play in the match or came on for limited minutes will do more of a normal session on the field. So it'll be a small group kind of session. But it depends manager to manager and how they do it. And it depends on the situation in the season. Like if you're early in the season, you might not have as light of a regen day. Right now, your regen day might be sleeping in. That's what it turns into. It just varies year to year, or day to day, and it varies manager to manager.
Chris Hutchison says we need Borg regen stations for each member of the team.
What would that be exactly?
Probably something very large and planet-sized.
Okay. Yes. We need the anti-gravity stuff, and we need Michael Jackson's hyperbaric chamber.
Yeah, but, I don't know how Borgs regenerate themselves, but I imagine it's something that is very, very expensive and very, very large.
Yeah, let's just get the hyperbaric chamber. It's probably a little cheaper.
Chiefs coach Steve, off of one of Katie's points from earlier in the show, he says, what can we learn and emulate from clubs that are negotiating the schedule compression? We're keeping company with the bottom performers. What are top teams doing that we aren't?
It's not that simple, though. That's the problem. You can't compare because everybody's in different situations. As we talked about earlier, I think the teams that have more continuity are built to handle this a little bit better. Teams that haven't had injuries are built to handle this a little bit better. But nobody is killing it during this. Everybody's having issues with it. Columbus has lost Nagbe and Zelarayán for a while now. We'll see how they handle it. They hadn't really had any major injuries since the Vito Wormhor center back injury, which they had some cover for, and it was a veteran who'd been with the team for a while, Josh Williams, so they were okay with that. We'll see. I don't think there's an easy answer to it, to be perfectly honest, because you can't say what's worked for Kansas City, which hasn't been perfect, would work here, because you're dealing with two different rosters and different situations within the rosters. It's hardest here because of losing your number 9. You don't have that goal-scoring threat. The Pity Martinez sale took away your number 1 chance creator at the time, although I think Ezequiel Barco can be that replacement. But then that means you don't have the second chance creator behind your number 1 guy. That's tough. Jurgen Damm, Kubo Torres, not 100%. That's been tough. That's made it more complicated. Fernando Meza being injured, that's made it a little more complicated, although Anton Walkes has performed well. It's just been harder here because of the individual situations that I don't know if you're going to learn from what somebody else has done.
Jake Michaels is in this morning. Jake says, I've reached the point where I'm tired of everyone trashing the situation. We all know it's bad, but feel as though the best thing we can do now is support the club and players. So my question is, as we support the club in this challenging time, what things, positive, negative, or otherwise, should we be looking for as we hope for progress over the remainder of 2020?
I think you're looking at the continued development of George Bello. I think you're looking at Brooks Lennon's development. I think you're looking at this midfield and the decisions that are going to need to be made with Remedi, with Hindman, with Josetu. So you're looking for performances out of them. I think you're looking at Barco and his continued growth and potentially to the point that he's going to move on. Jurgen Damm, I think Jurgen Damm getting 100% in his hamstring stinks for him. But I like what I've seen, and we're not anywhere close to 100% with Jurgen Damm. Not anywhere close at this point. But I like what he can bring to the table from what we've seen so far. And that's probably him, Bello. Those are the two that I'm really looking at and enjoying what we're seeing from them, and I want to continue to see more. But the other one is just players growing up. It's a Barco growing up to be the number one guy right now, even if it's for a short period of time here in Atlanta. Brooks Lennon continuing to develop into an important piece here, and I think a fan favorite. He should be. Josetu, I still want to see what he can be in the end of this, but I like what he's given us. Can he be consistent? Can he be the #Nagby replacement? No, he's not. But can he be a very important piece that gives you some different elements that Darlington didn't? Yes, I think he can. And I wonder what the pairing would be if it is Marcelino Moreno, which is sounding like it's going to be the guy. If it's him, then does he play centrally and pair up with Josetu or Hindman or Remedi? Or how do you make the midfield work? How do you make the trio work? He can play out on the flank if you want to keep Barco centrally. But then how would that work? So that's going to be exciting to see. I think he's a player that will really be a good fit. The more that I've watched from him and the more that I've kind of dug into him a bit, he's a player who I think transitions to MLS really, really well. You know, he's going to be in decent shape. They started training at the beginning of August. So fitness-wise, he should be pretty good. He'll be better off fitness-wise than Kubo and Dom were coming in because their teams were not training. So that'll help. You have to build the chemistry, you have to build the continuity. His match fitness will not be there, so that won't be where it needs to be. But he'll be able to get to 100% faster because of his fitness space, and that's going to help a ton. So if he's the guy, I want to see how he blends in, and that's always exciting to see because I think he's a good fit.
Couple more on Twitter before we are officially caught up. Bart is in this morning. He says, this team has continually regressed since the home team with Motagua, and spinning it any other way is foolish. The little hope we had from the draw at Orlando has been dashed by terrible results against two expansion teams. You can't escape that this team is bad, in all caps.
Who's all capping us right now?
Bartimus Prime.
It's not good. I mean, that's real. From the Motagua game, that's where you lost Joseph. So, yeah, that would make sense. I think it's bad, but it's correctable. And that's where I'm on with this because, and I had it after the game Saturday. You know, I talked about the individual mistakes that led to the breakdowns, and it was a conversation. I think it was with Ricky Ricardo about, you know, well, it's always individual mistakes, but it's different people making them. And that's what's so frustrating about it, is Brooks Lennon hadn't made these individual mistakes. 1v1 defending against Miami, you could put on that, but that's a little bit different conversation than the set-piece issues. If it was systemic breakdowns, I'd be more worried about it, and I think it would take longer to fix. With it being individual stuff, and so many off of set pieces, that's far more correctable, and it's able to be corrected quicker. So that's what I'm hoping, is that it's bad, but it is correctable far quicker than it could be in other situations. When you look at like Cincinnati, for example, Cincinnati is what it is. They're not good going forward. They don't have the talent to go forward right now. And Jaap Stam, I mean, if you thought Frank de Boer was defensive, whoo, Jaap Stam has parked everybody back because he doesn't feel like they can go forward. And now they're even getting some people back to be healthy and go forward. He's reluctant to do it. I don't know what their fix is. Chicago, I don't know what their quick fix is. You know, like Miami, who is okay, they're going to be better with Gonzalo Higuain. Then I think we'll have a better sense of where they're, if that's the quick fix. I think he's going to change the way that they play a whole lot, and it's going to take more time to incorporate him because they won't be able to press like they have. They won't be able to even look for the traps in midfield because he's not going to press. Gonzalo Higuain's not going to be leading a press for Miami. So how does that work? Because that's really different than what you've had with Carranza or with Robbie Robinson up top. So we'll see. Out west, I mean, the teams that are struggling out there, San Jose. All right. San Jose, I don't know what their fix is at all. I just honestly have no idea. Vancouver, it's talent. They just don't have enough. Colorado, huge result on the weekend, which shows you that MLS makes no sense. Going to Utah and winning that way, that nobody had that. Nobody saw that one coming. So we'll see if they can continue it. Dallas with Paxton Pomacall out is going to struggle, but they're young and they're still building, so you kind of expect that to a degree. If you can let me put it this way. If you can defend set pieces better right now, if that's just where you start, if you can defend set pieces better, you're going to get more results. Like right now, that's accurate. It's that simple. If the set piece defending is better, you're going to find more results right now without anything else changing. Second, if you stop giving up goals in the first half and you're not chasing the game for large stretches, that's going to help you a lot more. Those two things are correctable, and they need to get corrected. That's where we're at. I don't think we can really tell much else until we get that.
Chris Hutchison, for a public service, has posted what a Borg Regen station looks like.
You. Yes.
And while it does look like you're just standing on a platform, it is encased inside the larger Borg, which last time I checked is still a very expensive cube to have, and is planetary sized. So I think it might be a big expense for Arthur Blank if you wanted to have Borg Regen station. That
would probably be a tough one to pull off. Hopefully we can find a way to do that.
And then last one on the Twitters, Nathan Pugh says, nothing else to add, but I've really enjoyed the 92.9 broadcasts. He says, you and Mike do a good job expressing frustration and irritation in a professional manner.
I mean, we try. We've been tested a lot here lately with some of this. It's hard. It's easier when everything's going well. It's easy to call the games when things are exciting and everything's going well. All the performances are good and all of that. So now it's a lot harder. It is, because you have to try to explain why. And it's easier to explain why when things are going well. It's harder to explain why right now. As if you listen to the show. I mean, we talk about it every day, and it's not easy because it's harder to diagnose, because there's a lot of unknowns. And also doing games right now is a challenge when we're not there, because there's things that we don't see, like the corner that Atlanta had in Miami. That's one that I really hate not being there, because something I always look for, and I think I almost always mention it in the call, because I'm always focused on trying to make sure that if you're listening and you're not watching along, but you're just listening, that I'm giving you the idea of how teams are shaped, who is where on the field in terms of that, because that's how I know where people are. So I constantly try to remind that, like if the wingers switch sides, I try to tell you they switch sides. On set pieces like that, I try to tell you, okay, they've got one guy up, Atlanta's got so-and-so back. Or they've got two guys up in this case, which meant that Atlanta needed to have three back. Well, Miami kind of did something really unique in that Pizarro was up, but not with the front line. He dropped off of it. Hyndman had poor positioning on it. You had 2v2 behind that. The poor positioning turned into 3v2. I didn't really get a chance to see that develop until afterwards. Like I think I would have been yelling about it on the set piece, and they wouldn't have heard me, but you would have had a better picture of what was going on as it was going on. I think we fixed that in the replay and we explained it, but things like that are just hard at the moment. Calling games from a room not being in the building is hard. Calling games without real crowd noise is hard. But we're doing the best we can, and we're trying to entertain as best we can when the games are not necessarily the most entertaining, but we're also trying to educate and explain, and I hope that comes across.
Four Card has linked to a tweet 4 minutes ago from Cesar Luis Merlo.
Yep.
And multiple sirens from Four Card, but here's the translation. Marcelino Moreno is very close to becoming a reinforcement of Atlanta United. Lanús has advanced the sale of its entire pass and seeks to keep a percentage of a future sale. From Merlo, at the end of the week, the operation would be signed. Info with Mariano Antico, who works at TIC and has 45,000 followers as well.
Yeah, it's coming from all the top people. Julie Michelis, who also is with TIC, followed up on that and said that it's on track and said that everything is moving along. Article in Diario Ole said that it's pretty much going to happen. A couple of things in that, so you have a little bit more color to this. And this is translated to try to make sense of it as well for you guys. Lanús has decided they need to sell players. They had, at the beginning, and this is when they turned down the offer from Atletico Mineiro, they didn't want to sell Marcelino. They wanted to keep him, and they said if you want to buy him, you have to pay the $10 million. That was the release clause. That was in April. Well, 5 months later with no revenue, I think the financials have changed a little bit, and that's the sense I'm getting from the Argentine media as well. They got rid of players with high contracts then. They promoted some kids. They've been managing the financials for a while because of that. They were still able to do that in April and say, no, we're okay for now because they'd put themselves into a good position. Now, you need cash. You need cash. And you have to find a way to make this work. So the amount of money, nobody knows. There has not been any leaks of any price tags. And Transfermarkt, I think, had him valued at, was it 4.5, something like that? That's a little bit of a guessing game right now because, I mean, you've seen all the numbers on Transfermarkt be all over the place here lately as they try to figure out what the market looks like. I don't think it was up to 5, Kefsey. I thought it was just under 5, but I could be wrong.
4.
4? Right at 4?
Yep. Right at €4, yes.
Okay. Earlier in all of this, they had said that, again, translated, this is from the front office at Lanús, unless an important offer appears that suits the club and the player, the idea is not to transfer anyone, which is the right approach. I mean, you don't want to say, hey, open sale, yard sale's open, come spend whatever you want, and we'll sell players, for cheap. No, that's not how you really negotiate. So they're handling that the way you would expect. This is one of those important offers, it sounds like. Moreno has been linked to clubs in Europe in the past. We mentioned Atletico Mineiro in April. At least in April is when it was discussed that they weren't going to get him. Sounds like maybe that negotiation started a little bit sooner. He has been at Lanús for a long time. 18 is when he arrived and made his debut. He did go to Talleres for a little while in lower divisions. He played 112, this is according to Diario Ole, 112 games with Lanús. And the last season that completed the Superliga season, which was 20-plus games and ended at the beginning of March where Boca ended up winning it, that was Moreno's best season as a pro. Who scored ratings, which is based off the statistics from the game, all of them. And I think it's their own formula. Nobody else uses it. Had him rated as the third best player in the league, which is substantial. That doesn't happen by accident. He, to me, from watching him over the last year, I've tried to watch back some games with Lanús over the last year. I do not want to go down the hashtag replacement side of things here because that just gets people confused. He is a central midfielder who I have typically seen lined up on the left side of a team that plays a lot in a 4-1-4-1 kind of shape. You could call it a 4-3-3, but the important part is the midfield is one behind two. He's one of the two in the front. But he's a player who will drop back and defend. He's a player who covers a lot of ground. He could play as an 8. He could play as a 10. He could play out wide. He has the quickness to play out wide. He's got good speed. I think he is quicker rather than fast. Jürgen Damm to me is fast. Moreno is quick. A little different. First step quicker from Moreno. Full speed, Damm is better, but Moreno's speed is good. He can defend. His numbers defensively are good, and they've been that way over his whole career. He wins tackles. He wins interceptions. He is active defensively. But as we saw in this last season with Lanús, and don't get hung up on goal scoring and assist numbers out of Argentina. Miguel Almiron had 2 and 4 before he came here. And played in a similar kind of role where it wasn't as a true number 10. Now here he played as a true number 10 in a system that was basically built around him, and you saw what you got. And he's not producing those kinds of numbers at Newcastle, although they've picked up. Argentina, the league, the style of play is a little different. As a player, he's a very high-quality player. He's an interesting one in that he has no social media. That's kind of a throwback.
Yeah, it is.
I can't think of a pro in the last... I can't think of anybody that I know well who doesn't have any social media. You're not going to find him on Instagram or Twitter. If you see Marcelino Moreno stuff on Instagram or Twitter, it's got to be fake because I don't think he has anything. He's had those situations to go to Europe, it sounds like, and it hasn't happened. And I don't necessarily know why, and that's something I'll be curious to try to find out a little more on. But it sounds like this is Tesco. Tesco doesn't have social media. Thank you, Tesco. I think it had to be somebody. I kind of have to for my job, and I can manage it to where it doesn't bother me. But yes, it can be bad. He has no social media, so you're not gonna get to analyze. He's not smiling in this picture. Oh, he posted stuff about Lanús. He doesn't want to be here.
He's hanging out with guys that aren't on his team.
Yeah, you're not gonna get to do that one with Marcelino, which is probably for the best. We'll see what the numbers end up looking like. It's going to be interesting. Like I said, $10 million release clause is what was on him. I don't think you're going to pay that. But how much less are you going to pay when there's been interest? And I would assume that once anybody heard that, hey, he might actually be for sale now, that interest picked back up from teams who might have been able to afford it. I don't know if Mineiro could have come back to the table at this point. That's going to be interesting. But he, to me, I think he's a player who can immediately help this team in a couple ways. He can be a player who can combine with Barco. He can be a player who comes in and brings fresh air to it. I think Tyler Wolff did that in a way. Just a player who hasn't had these losses pile up on them. Those things weigh you down. When you have games where you're not getting results, it weighs you down. It affects the way you play. It affects your confidence. Tyler Wolff didn't have that. Saw him look a little bit different. Moreno's going to come in and not be that guy. He's going to come in and try to lift this group. And he's going to work for the team, which is something you need at the moment. He's going to come in, and that's his mentality. That's the way he plays, is he's going to work really hard for the group. That can be contagious. I think he's a very good fit. I think he can help this team going forward, but I also think he can help this team in transition, which is a very important part of the game that has been a problem at times and has popped up semi-consistently this year with transitioning from offense to defense and mistakes happening there. So I hope he can be a player who fits that. And it just connecting all the dots. I mean, Darren Neal said they were going to go get a designated player. That was when Pitty's deal became agreed upon. Carlos spoke with Fox Sports South pregame and told them that new faces are coming. And I think he meant a face. I don't think he meant multiple faces, according to what Doug Robertson has confirmed. And this was reported by Merlo before. Now it's been reported again. I think you can connect the dots that this is probably the move that will happen. So we shall see. Byrne wanted to talk about the twos, and I got a chance to watch that back yesterday morning. It was a great call from you and Jess. What did you think about the match with the twos?
Well, I mean, we all know that the Miami FC thrives on chaos, and yes, it's a veteran side, and what we're seeing this year from Atlanta United 2 is not what we've seen, not what we've seen last year. I mean, the example that comes to mind is the game up at Montclair against New York Red Bulls 2. And then, you turn, and then all of a sudden by the end of it, there's 8 on the board. You're not seeing that anymore. You're seeing a lot of fight. You're seeing guys that are growing this season. Jack Gurr had a tremendous match against the Miami FC over the weekend.
Created 5 chances.
Yeah, and I mean, it's good to see, and I'm taking the season really as a progression and growth more than anything else, and just seeing guys continuing to. We didn't see Caleb Wiley, but we saw Matthew Edwards. Matthew Edwards, very, very quiet, very, very confident, and we got to see him. You're seeing the growth of Patrick Nielsen becoming more familiar with things at the back. You're seeing. Like I said, I mentioned Jack Gurr as a part of this too, and then you're seeing guys like Mackie Jope continue to grow. And for me, that's how I'm looking at things. Yes, it was a 2-1 loss. There were chances. Jackson Conway hitting the underside of the crossbar at one point, and if that goes an inch one way or the other, then you're tied at 2. And
that's the one that I about came out of my chair watching it.
Yeah. Oof. And so, I mean, it was a great feed, and Conway hits it, and it's just an inch here or there, and that goes in the back of the net. And once again, it's a team that's continuing to generate chances and continuing to move its way forward. And so for me, once again, obviously with the loss, they're bumped out of any kind of postseason here in 2020. But once again, it's about the growth and the progression of the guys, and we've got our next chance to catch up with them midweek. In the last 2 home matches of the year are the next 2 Wednesdays.
Yep, we do. We got a little bit of this.
Uh-oh.
No, it's not an uh-oh. Don't be uh-ohing about everything. Put down on your calendar September 24th. We are doing another soccer trivia contest for Soccer in the Streets. What you need to do is you can play using or making any donation to Soccer in the Streets. Whatever you can donate, you donate. I'm going to blast the link out now. And 7 to 9. It'll be all soccer trivia. There'll be Atlanta United stuff in there. There'll be MLS stuff. There'll be U.S. men's and women's national team stuff in there. There'll be a pop culture round in there, which is always fun. We'll have probably some Champions League, World Cup kind of stuff in there as well. Roberto Rojas from beIN Sport has won back-to-back. Both have been very close and came down to the last question. Somebody needs to knock him off first.
Yeah, really? Come on now.
But it's been a lot of fun, and it all supports what Soccer in the Streets is doing. And right now, one thing that they're doing this is going to specifically support is free meal delivery in low-income neighborhoods.
Nice.
Kids who are part of the program who might not be in school right now, might not be able to be in school right now. And kids who are part of the program, something that I think at times we all take for granted is how important meals at schools are. And when you're not able to be in the school, it can be a huge, huge challenge at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
So Soccer in the Streets has partnered up with a lot of different agencies in the city to do that. And we're going to help do that. So it will be trivia on the 24th from 7 to 9. I've got Mike Conti helping me out this time around with some questions. And he'll be joining as a host. You will need to join us via Zoom, and you'll get all the instructions on this when you donate. You'll join on Zoom. There's the game app is called Kahoot, which is how you'll actually answer the questions. It's all multiple choice. The faster you answer, the more points you get. It'll be fun. It'll be fun. Please join us. We've had a good time the last 2 times we've done it. We'll get Kevin Egan back into this. We're going to do this on a monthly basis going forward for Soccer in the Streets, and we're going to try to rotate different people hosting with me. So Kevin will come back into it. Mike's doing it this time around. We're going to try to reach out to some of the other broadcasters around the league as well. I want to get Dunny on one of these.
Oh, there you go.
And get some different people in to ask some questions and have some fun with it. So September 24th is the next one. Donate whatever you can. Any donation allows you to play. And it all goes to supporting the kids at Soccer in the Streets. So September 24th.
Since I know I would lose, I'm just going to go ahead and donate. Since I know I would finish last, I'm just going to go ahead and donate.
Well, why don't you do this? Why don't you come up with a contest among SDH listeners for you to donate for them to be able to play, but you have to figure out some way to pick who gets to play for you.
Wow, okay.
So you got to think about that. I know that's painful, but I think you can do it. I have faith in you.
Yeah, because, I mean, it would probably be something around 80s movies or something like that, and it would probably be a question with that. So if you guess this particular piece of trivia that I have related to an 80s movie, you get to be my proxy on the 24th.
Yes.
So I've got a movie already in mind, and so I'll probably come up with something related to that movie. But I'm just going to go ahead and donate anyway and let somebody take my place.
Okay.
Finish far higher than I would in this competition.
Well, follow the link, and why don't you share that from Soccer Down Here as well?
Okay.
And follow the link and make your donation there, and then we'll figure out who is playing in your place.
Yes.
There's no food takes category, so yes, you would be completely out of it. Thank you, Katie Weaver, for taking another shot at John. I appreciate it.
That's nothing.
I'm not the bully this time.
No, and Chris Hutchison is saying raffle the spot. So
that's what I'm saying.
So we'll raffle the spot, and then people will finish far higher than I ever would.
That's probably true.
No, that is indisputed. That is indisputable evidence, by the way. All right, so I will retweet that from
is
the
there
SDH.
and okay, we've had a lot of questions on Twitter. We went through all that. It's 10:40 at this point. Is there anything else from Saturday that we have to talk about? I don't think so. I'm kind of hoping not. I think we've covered it all. The only I didn't talk about the twos from what I saw with it, and I watched it, the next morning. The performance was good. I think this year the performances have been far better. Like every year they've gotten better, and I think they've jumped the most this year. And a lot of that's down to the academy players coming through who have that understanding of where this team, how this team should play. And they're at a higher level than they were in the past. And that's boosted everything, even with as weird of a year as it's been. I would have loved to have seen this without the crazy year that it's been. Gannon came in and was good. Really good tackle from him late in the game as well. That was impressive to see. I was pleased with the performance. It felt a little unlucky, and you're giving up goals off set pieces, so it's all in the family. Giving up goals off set pieces, that's what we do around here. Hopefully that'll change at some point. Question from Turner: when is the Voyageurs Cup final, the Canadian Championship? I think they've actually gotten away from the Voyageurs Cup name. I think they've just went to the Canadian Championship name at this point. When is that final set? I know Montreal put themselves in really good position to get to the final with their win last night. Now they have to win again over Vancouver on Wednesday. Again, weirdness of the schedule, but they are. Oh yeah, if they win
by 2 again.
Well, hold on, because if they win by 2, then yes. But if they win by 1, if they win 1-0, then everything is equal. I know it goes down to it's goal differential, goals 4. That's the number 4 tiebreak. It'd go to away goal differential, and we'd have to do some math. If they win by 2, they're good. If they win by 1, math comes into play. Mm-hmm. Actually, you know what? If they win by 1, but score 2 goals, so if they win 2-1, they would go through, because goals 4 is number 4 tiebreak, and they would have 10 goals at that point. So if they score 2 goals and win, 2 goals or more and win, they will go through. All right, I think that's the fair way to put it. The final is September 19th for the Canadian Premier League, and then the final game here is on the 16th. The actual final of it, I don't know when that will be.
I think that's the 24th.
Is it? It's not listed on the wonderful Wikipedia page for it, which is usually pretty good. Let's see if they updated it on the article here at CanadaSoccer.com. It's coming here at some point. Did they say the 24th? No, they haven't said. Details will be announced at a later date. At least that's the last one I saw. Maybe they've announced it since. But anyway, also, would there be an issue with the Canadian MLS teams getting back into the country to play that final after coming into the into the U.S.? It's a good question. Maybe that's another complication with all of this. I don't know. Maybe they want to. They haven't been able to do it. Maybe they wanted to try to keep that from happening. But maybe what they'll have to do is play it in the U.S. I mean, it's
probably, yeah.
It's madness, but if the Canadian Premier League finals the 19th and Montreal has relocated for a period of time in the U.S., maybe what they have to do is find a midweek where Montreal doesn't play MLS and they play it wherever Montreal's hosting games in the United States. And the Canadian Championship final is played in the United States.
The Canadian Championship final is either going to be in Hartford or Portland.
No, it's not going to be in Portland.
Oh, that's sorry, Red Bulls or other side. So either Red Bulls or
Hartford,
Frenchler.
Yeah, probably that's a safe bet. I have not read the article yet, but I have had people text me about it, and I've seen it pop up multiple times already in the chat about Diego Maradona. The night Diego Maradona played in Canada, God was in town. This I got to see, but I've not seen it just yet. So.
And apparently there are 2 known VHSs of this performance, and it looks like access was given to one of those VHS tapes for this, to Pablo Maurer, for him to help write this piece. Okay.
I will be reading that one when we're done. I just finished a book, and I want to make sure I give you the right title of it, because it was really good, and it was a lot deeper than just Maradona, and just his career. And it'd probably be easier just to look it up on my phone, because that's how I read books these days, on my phone.
I still read books in books.
I mean, I do occasionally, but generally, and I started doing it when I was traveling for games, is I started reading on my phone, because I just have it on Kindle or Google Play or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I do too. I still like the idea of turning pages physically in a book.
I moved on past that. I can forget that at this point. I've started on a Bielsa book, The Quality of Madness: A Life of Marcelo Bielsa by Tim Rich.
Sweet.
I've started on that one, but I finished The Journey: Maradona, the Generals, and the Road to Naples. It's the prequel to Once Upon a Time in Naples, which was the book that kind of sparked the documentary last year, which was about his time in Naples. John Ludden is the writer. But this book was about his time going to Barcelona, his time coming up in Argentinos Juniors, and then Boca, and also what was going on in Argentina politically at the time. Fascinating read. So recommend John Ludden's books on Maradona, and I will be reading this article as well. And I'll be reading Guillaume Balaguer's book on Maradona when it comes out. He is writing it as we speak.
Yes. So let me ask you this, since we're on the Maradona segment of the show.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a part of his life that hasn't had exposure that you'd like to know more about?
Nope. Because everything's been exposed. Like there's nothing that hasn't been exposed. I mean, this guy has lived his life in the spotlight since he was 15 when he broke through at Argentinos. Even before that, he was on TV. I mean, he was a kid in the academy at Argentinos and was juggling at halftime in the stands, and to the point that the fans were wanting him to keep juggling and delay the second half. That was before he was a pro. Juggle an orange, he'd juggle a ball. I mean, he'd juggle whatever. He was on TV doing this. He's been in the spotlight. You know, it's almost like a child actor kind of situation. So everything's out there, and I mean, he's never really shied away from talking about his problems either. So no, I mean, there's really not much. I guess the only thing that would be interesting if somebody wanted to do a behind the scenes of his time managing Argentina when he took over, when they were trying to qualify for 2010. And it was a mess, and he came in, he got him into the World Cup in 2010, and they ended up losing to Germany in the knockout stages. That would be a kind of cool, shorter story that hasn't been maybe told from an insider perspective. I wouldn't mind hearing that. But, I mean, his career as a player, it's been pretty well documented.
Oh, we need to thank somebody, don't we?
Yeah, you want to do that right about now?
Yeah, I could do that right about now.
It's coming.
Appolinsky & Associates, LLC, proud supporters of everything soccer down here and the SDH network. Over 30 years of experience, over $40 million in judgments for their clients in Georgia and Alabama for wrongful death and serious injury matters. If this is a discussion that you would unfortunately need to have, a couple different ways that you can do it with our friends at Appolinsky & Associates, LLC. You can shoot Steve Appolinsky an email directly at steve@aa-legal.com, or you can go to their website at aa-legal.com in general. And when you hit the enter key, the arrow key, or whatever key it is that advances the screen to get you to aa-legal.com on your favorite device, pop-up window pops up, because that's what pop-up windows do. They pop up, have an instant discussion, 24/7, 365 and a quarter, and you can have answers given to you that way, or you can get a free consultation at 404-377-9191. Appolinsky & Associates, LLC, recognized as Legal Elite by Georgia Trend Magazine for being one of the top 100 firms in this here state of Georgia for wrongful death and serious injury matters for clients in Georgia and Alabama. Appolinsky & Associates, LLC. The website is aa-legal.com.
Nicely done. I have an interesting one to share, and we'll get into this probably deeper on soccer over there. That'll be 7 o'clock tonight. We'll talk a lot about Leeds and Liverpool. We'll talk a lot about Week 1 of the Premier League. We'll talk about Serie A getting started here shortly. La Liga got underway, but without the heavyweights.
Yep.
I watched a lot of South American games over the weekend. We'll talk about all that kind of stuff, but this, I think, is valid.
What a plonker.
Okay.
So, in the first meeting, this is from Deportes Cuatro in Spain. In the first meeting since Lionel Messi gave his interview, he's played for Barcelona in a friendly. He told they were playing a second division or third division team. I think it was a third division team. And some guy was marking him, and he told him to stop kicking him, you blank. Because that's how he was defending him, which probably about the only way you can defend Lionel Messi if you're a third division player. But That isn't the headline. The headline is in the first meeting with President Bartomeu since everything went down. Deportes Cuatro reports that Bartomeu will ask Messi to lower his salary in his season. It's a complicated thing because, I mean, Barca's not in a good position.
No, they're
financially.
No.
Normally, you'd make this request, and you'd probably need to make this request, and maybe it would be received differently. But after the way that you were treated, maybe Lionel Messi doesn't want to do that. He was elected captain by his teammates, which there were some questions on if that would happen. He's not just doing this for himself. He is representing the players in this. And if he refuses to, then I don't think any other players are going to accept it. If he accepts a pay cut this season, or for however long, other players will. And Barcelona needs them to. I don't think they're going to have fans in the stands anytime soon in Spain.
Yeah.
So it's complicated. I would not want to be in Bartomeu's shoes in this one, to have to go make this request. And he probably does have to make this request. But it's not going to be received very well, I wouldn't think. I do think Lionel Messi will accept it. I think he will, because I think he'll do it for the good of the club. But he might have a few things to say in doing so, and I would not want to be on the other end of that verbal hairdryer.
No. There's going to be a lot to talk about on soccer over there. Looking forward to that. But so then, is Bartomeu the plonker, or is Barcelona the plonker on the grander scale?
Well, Bartomeu's the plonker because he's been a plonker for a long time.
True. Yes. Anything else going on the Twitch pitch? We are still caught up on Twitter.
Yeah, final call on questions on the Twitch pitch. Alex Bassine is happy because Newcastle got a win over the weekend. Everton threw all their new signings out there and got a win. Hamas was man of the match, so people are happy in that world. Mm-hmm. Leeds was a lot of fun to watch against Liverpool. They did not back down. They gave it Liverpool everything they could possibly handle and more. Liverpool won 4-3 in a wild one. It's going to be fun to watch Bielsa in the Premier League, but I think it showed that the idea that you can't come up from the championship with a team that was successful in the championship is not entirely accurate. They've added some pieces, but Leeds didn't go and spend a whole ton of money to try to upgrade their squad to Premier League standard.
Yeah.
They have a great manager, and they have a system that is difficult to play against, and they force you into difficult decisions. But they're also going to concede goals the other way. And we'll see how that goes over the course of the year. But they're going to be a fun one to watch for sure. Copa Libertadores is back this week, tomorrow. Games Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday in South America. We'll talk about it in detail tonight and kind of give you a little bit of a preview. You can watch those on Fanatis on BN Sport, which you can get on Fanatis, fntz.co/soccer down here if you want to keep up with those games. There are some really good matchups coming up. The one that I'm most excited about is Thursday, 8 o'clock. Flamengo, Dome Torrents Flamengo, against Independiente del Valle from Ecuador, who had a big win over the weekend after falling behind, coming back. They won 4-2. That should be the match of the weekend, or of the week in Libertadores. But we'll get you set for all of that, too. The Argentine teams are really going to struggle because they haven't played since March.
Yeah.
And they're going to play. And to the point that you've got teams like Boca Juniors who had 20 players who were sick or who tested positive. We're not sick. I don't think very many were actually sick. They've gotten back to training. I don't know where they are squad-wise at this point, but CONMEBOL has allowed teams the roster that you can pull from. We see this in Europe as well when you have to name your roster for the Champions League for the group stage, and you can have 30 or so. I think it's 30 normally in Libertadores. They've expanded that to 50 now because you're going to have players who test positive, and you're going to have to pull from your academy to come up and play. And that's just where it stands. So we'll get into all of that tonight on Soccer Over There. Chris Ashley still yelling about no Mingo forever. And, hey, no goals conceded. That's pretty nice. And I think Chris was trying to take credit for that by starting that hashtag and stuff. That might be a little much. I don't know if the hashtag did it.
Nick Brawley's in this morning. He says, do you feel like Atlanta United has become too predictable now to other teams? Do we need to simply execute our game plan better, or do we need a change of tactics? I know I haven't had much time for training, so changing our tactics may be an out-of-reach idea.
Yeah, and you're not going to change your tactics overall, but can you mix in more balls over the top to make defenses be a little more honest with that? Yes, even with Atlanta being so slow, like everybody says, you can still do that. You can still play that ball in over the top from time to open the game up. It's just like in basketball where a defense takes the paint away, you've got to take some three-point shots to open a team up. So in this case, you've got to play some balls over the top, in behind, to open them up. That should happen more. That's not changing the tactics. That's just changing the way you attack. You've got to look to hit quicker when you can from time to time. It'll make teams back off of you a little bit, and it'll give you more space to operate in. The biggest thing is you've just got to be better at what you do, because even in the situations where you're attacking and the team is sitting deep, the passing is not consistently fast enough. And this is not a Barco thing. Barco, everybody wants to hammer on Barco for holding the ball too long. I disagree with this. Barco uses his dribble. He uses the ball to open the team up. He is dribbling where some teams would pass. But what is not happening is when he's doing that, movement off the ball isn't happening. So he dribbles from left to right across to open the team up. He gets defenders going with him. Nobody's making the run in on the backside for him to slip the pass to. That's the part that has to happen. That movement has to happen. Otherwise, he's dribbling into bringing more defenders to him for no reason, because nobody's taking advantage of the fact that he's got all the defenders on him. The movement has to happen. I think it has to get better the way it is. But, yes, you need a little more variety at times. But you're not going to turn into a defend and counter team. You're not going to turn into a park the bus and play long ball team. You're not going to turn into that. You've got to be better with what you do. But you can add a little more variety in it, and it's something that the players have to look for more often.
With the win that the Triumph had this past weekend, their points lead is now back up to 6, but Union Omaha is 6 points back with 2 matches in hand.
Your topic changing is throwing me off today completely. Thought we were talking about tactics, John, because you changed it to tactics.
Yeah, I did, and then
you sold me on Greenville Triumph talk.
And that's why I went back to Greenville Triumph after the no sell.
Ay, Dios mío. Okay, we'll finish up with the Twitch pitch. Hutcho says Messi can make less money at many other teams, which is very accurate. I think at this point he feels obligated to see it out, and TIC on Sportia right now has Marcelino Moreno muy cerca de la MLS. Advanced negotiations is what they are saying. So it is spreading through everybody right now, so we will see if and when this deal gets done. Probably too many dots that have been connected now to say that it's not likely, but let's see what happens. Messi can make less money at many other clubs, but he feels obligated now to stay, in my opinion, and we'll see it out and will leave at the end of the season. I don't think he signs an extension, so he'll go. But he'll do what's best for the club, because I think he's a Barcelona guy. He feels it, and that's what was hurtful to him about the way all this was handled, was he wasn't treated like that. He was treated like he was just anybody else. And I think he's shown that he's not, and that's maybe what upset him. Byrne says, so he's asking Messi to drop his salary so he can waste money on Depay and Wijnaldum. Yeah, pretty much. Sadly, that's true. Tesco is excited about Colo-Colo and Peñarol this week on Copa Libertadores. Which day is that one, Tesco, if you're still with us? I won't be able to see the Wednesday games because we'll have the Tuesday game Wednesday night. But Tuesday and Thursday night, I will be watching the Libertadores. And I think Thursday I've got the doubleheader because Defensa is playing in the early game, and then that Independiente del Valle hosting Flamengo game is the late game. So that's going to be fun. Ricky says, so no new news from CONCACAF regarding CCL. They need to go ahead and call it. I think they might be somewhat hampered by the Club World Cup and FIFA not calling it yet. I don't think CONCACAF wants to say first, like, yeah, we're not going to have a champion this year, so if you have a Club World Cup, we're just not coming. I think they're waiting for FIFA to take the lead on that. FIFA needs to say there's not going to be a Club World Cup. FIFA needs to move on. CONMEBOL already did. CONMEBOL's got more standing than CONCACAF. CONMEBOL already said the Libertadores final isn't going to be until January. They would just send somebody else instead. CONCACAF.
Keep talking. I'll be right back.
Okay. Well, go ahead and leave because we're done. Just don't hang up yet. John's talking and waving his hands and can't hear him because, John is in Statesboro. He will be back in his normal place for the match or for the show tonight. But CONCACAF, I think they're kind of wanting to do this the right way with FIFA. They're not going to get to. FIFA needs to go and cancel the Club World Cup. I don't think there's going to be any continental national team play until 2021. I mean, it's sounding like everything's going to be pushed back to 2021 now with national team play. Club World Cup's going to be pushed back as well, and I don't know where it's going to fit into the 21 calendar either, to be perfectly honest, because I think you're going to need every window possible for World Cup qualifiers, so they're probably waiting on all of that. Like I said, the best thing for Atlanta would be if they do abandon it, but say that everybody who was still alive is automatically in the next one because they weren't eliminated. So all your quarterfinalists go into an expanded CONCACAF Champions League in 21 when you can do it, and hey, Atlanta gets to survive. Maybe I'm just being wishful with my thinking there. We'll see. Chris Ashley wants to get a message to Atlanta players to kick the heck out of Figal on Saturday, actually. You can kick him on Friday if you can go find him, I guess. Unbelievable that he played. Unbelievable that he tried to slam Nani to the ground after getting embarrassed and was able to do that because he shouldn't have been on the field. The disciplinary committee for Major League Soccer 100% completely failed. It's an embarrassment. We'll see if Pro releases the video of the situation with any audio from behind the scenes. I'd love to hear what that was. I don't know if we'll get to hear it. But the fact that Pro hasn't said they messed up, the fact that MLS disciplinary committee didn't rule on it is a joke. Absolute, complete, and utter joke. And that is not acceptable. So, Figal should have been suspended this weekend. And we'll see what happens. We'll see if anything carries over. Atlanta's got to focus on winning first. They can't even focus on revenge on Figal. But, yeah, if somebody gets a chance to stick him pretty strongly with a tackle, they might go in with a little extra gusto in this one.
Yes.
We shall see. Shiva says, is LAFC for real this year? I don't think so, not until they get another center back. Even with Atuesta, even with Vela coming back from injuries, their defense is weaker than it was, and it wasn't good enough to win MLS Cup before. They have to get a center back. They liked the deal that they got from Nashville for Walker Zimmerman. I get that. They felt like they couldn't keep him. They couldn't pay him what he wanted. He was being linked to European clubs. Nashville was able to pay him what he wanted, so fine. All that makes sense. They haven't replaced him yet. It's September. That was in February. And Dejan Jakovic, Tristan Blackman, playing Latif Blessing as a right back, none of that is the answer. They have to get another center back. They're not an MLS Cup winner, in my opinion, until they get another center back. Chris Ashley has corrected everyone. He says that someone on the Triumph backline kept yelling "No Mingo" during the match. I'm going to have to go back and check the tape on this one, Chris. I'm just saying. Burns says Steve Bruce leaving his best player on the bench and playing a 4-4-2 is very on brand. That it is.
Yeah, yes it is.
That it is. Mezzano says, how long before Atlanta gets so frustrated being fouled so much that the whole squad goes LGP and lights an opponent up regardless of consequences? I'm surprised it hasn't happened. I'm surprised that Barco hasn't done it. It's... And again, I'm going to draw a lot of things back to Maradona from watching his career, and Barco is not Maradona, but Barco is being fouled at Maradona-esque levels right now. And what did Maradona do when that happened when he was young? He put his boots into the groin of a Brazilian player in the '82 World Cup. It was the wrong player, actually, too, and he felt bad about it because he meant to get somebody else. But he got sent off, and that was how he left the '82 World Cup, was walking off in shame because he studs up on, the ball's bouncing, and he said he knew exactly what he was doing, but it was just the wrong player. He thought it was the guy who had been fouling him all day, and he just put his boots into the guy's groin. I'm impressed that Barco hasn't, because he's the one that I could see snapping, because he's the one taking the brunt of it. Remedi's getting fouled, but in different ways. His is more like he's getting grabbed as he's trying to start the play, stuff like that. It's lighter. Barco's getting brought down pretty hard. I hope he doesn't lose it. Pacine says our players just need to understand each other's movements better. We can land a few more creative passes when there's better understanding. And I that's a great point. We started to see that with Lennon and Dom, where they were starting to understand one another better. I think Barco and Bello are starting to get a little bit better feel for one another. It does take time, and it takes players staying healthy and playing next to one another, and that's challenging at the moment. Ricky wants us to talk about the Skywalker goal from Ligue 1, which is ridiculous. That volley was absurd. We will talk about that tonight. We'll talk about the goalkeeper who scored in Brazil. We'll talk about Gabby Torres, the Panamanian international, who has had a resurgence in Ecuador. We'll talk about that tonight as well. So we got lots of stuff to get into there. Irvin Cardona was the goal scorer in Ligue 1, which is absurd. Mezzano, have we heard from Pro or the disciplinary committee? We have not. He played this weekend, so I'm assuming they didn't. LB Foubert said they posted their Inside VAR video yesterday. It was like a week behind, though. So they haven't addressed that week's games yet. Maybe they will. We'll have to wait and see. Ricky Ricardo with traffic information, which is important for those of you in the Atlanta area. There's a chemical fire, I-20 eastbound, westbound between Highway 138 and Sigmund Road. Exit 82 and 78 shut down. Chemical fire at the BioLab plant. So traffic is being diverted. So don't go that way. No,
if you're in the eastern side of town outside the perimeter, come up with other ways to get into town, or just don't come into town. Yeah. Stay home, work from home. That's what we're all doing these days. If you can avoid it, don't get on I-20 anywhere near Conyers. Yeah. That'll do it. We'll be back at 7 o'clock with Soccer Over There. Yes, Ricky was reporting live from Chopper 4. That is correct, Pacine. We'll be back at 7 o'clock, Soccer Over There. Get in your questions on Twitter, at Soccer Down Here, at Sock Over There, at Nick Alifi, at Jarrett_Smith, at OSG Nelson, at Longshoe. You can at all of us as much as you want to at us about anything. But tonight's topics will be revolving around the Over There portion. Yes. Could there be some topics that are in the Down Here portion? Yeah, it's been known to happen. So let us know. We'll keep you posted on anything we hear out of Argentina on Marcelino Moreno. We will keep you posted about anything else going on in the Down Here universe on our Twitter account at Soccer Down Here. And we'll be back at 7. Mucho plata, y'all. Mucho plata, y'all.